problem. So Mark here from Rock and Load, and I'm absolute pleasure being joined by Texan guitar legend Lance Lopez. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, Mark. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
My pleasure, my pleasure. It's cool to catch up with you. You're a name that has been bouncing around for a few years on my social media, and it's great to finally catch up with you. So I'm delighted to talk to you.
Well, thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here, and thank you for having me.
No, not at all, not at all. So, Lance, since this is our very first time talking, can you give me a little bit of history about what piqued your interest in music, first of all, and why guitar?
Oh, man. Well, that story goes back quite a number of years. When I was 3 years old, or one of the earliest memories I have as a small child, my father put on a Betamax cassette. Now, for some of you that
showing your age,
old, remember what a Betamax video cassette is. It was pre-VHS. That's how long ago this was. And he put on a Betamax cassette of Elvis Presley.
Okay.
68 Comeback Special, where Elvis was sitting in the round playing guitars with, Scotty Moore and DJ Fontana and lots of other, his band, his early band guys. And it was really raw, unprecedented footage of seeing, kind of an interview of Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
And so what was funny about that is I was watching Elvis Presley. I had no clue who this man was, and I'm watching as a toddler. And then I looked next to the TV set that we have in our house, and I saw a framed picture of my father and the same guy.
Yeah.
So there next to the TV was a framed picture of my father and Elvis Presley together. And all I knew was that this was my dad's friend, they were playing together. And so my father and Elvis had met at Louisiana Hayride in the mid-1950s. And then they were stationed in Germany in the Army together in the late 50s. So they just became very, very close friends. And so we knew him as Uncle E,
Yeah, yeah.
And so that was it. And, the minute I saw those guitars, that's what I wanted to do immediately. And so my father supported it. Sadly, I died a month before. Elvis died a month before I was born.
Yeah.
So my family was scheduled to go meet him in December. He died in August, and my family was scheduled to go and meet Elvis in December of that year. And that was the first thing my mother said. She was still pregnant with me. And that was the first thing she said, is that I would not be able to meet Elvis.
Yeah.
Immediately when they found out that he passed away. So him being a close friend of my dad wasn't a musician, but he was friends with probably one of the most, if not arguably the biggest rock star of all time. He pushed me into playing guitar, and he really pushed me. And so from there on, I wanted an electric guitar. And a few years later, he got me one for Christmas, a Christmas gift. And he gave me an acoustic guitar, and he gave me an album by Chuck Berry. Called The Great 28. He said, if you learn all these songs on this Chuck Berry record, I'll buy you an electric guitar.
Motivation.
So, yeah. So I learned every Chuck Berry song I could as fast as I could. And then, then it just kind of escalated from there.
Yeah, yeah. And I believe you were out gigging from the age of 14 onwards.
Yeah. Absolutely. I had been in bands in school, and we played all different kinds of, whatever popular rock music was happening at that time, or whatever else. And I lived with my mother in Texas, in Dallas, and my dad lived in New Orleans. So at some point in there, I went to live with my dad in New Orleans. I think the end of junior high school, at the beginning of high school, I moved to New Orleans with my dad.
Yeah.
And he saw how much I had progressed with my guitar playing. And it was my dad that said, okay, it's time to go out and start playing professionally.
Yeah.
And so that's how that came about. We immediately began to go out, and he took me to all the bars in New Orleans, and he was friends with some of the Neville family. So I was, he was taking me to the bowling alley to where these guys are playing on a regular basis in different bars around New Orleans. And I was playing with these iconic New Orleans legendary musicians, and I had no idea who they were. I just knew my dad was taking me to the pub again to play with some old guys.
Yeah.
And I was playing with icons, with legends, and so that's kind of how it worked. And it's funny because I was just telling the story earlier. We would play around the clock. My first gigs were all night long because nothing ever closed in New Orleans.
Yeah.
So I would go to school all day and come home from school, and then I would play 3 gigs a night. I would play, the happy hour gig from 5 to 8, and then the normal gig from 9 to 12, and then I'd play the after hour gig from like 2 to 5 a.m. and go home and nap for an hour and get up and go to school.
Do it all over again.
It was crazy. So that was my high school job.
Yeah. It must have been a really wonderful, though, rich musical education. Crazy to even try and comprehend what it was like, but you must have learned so much.
I really and truly did. And again, I had no idea that I had been playing, that I had the blessing, the great bit of good fortune to be playing with such legendary musicians at such a young age in the beginning. So, I was very, very honored that I was able to play with, a lot of really iconic blues and soul musicians. And I really didn't understand the magnitude of who I was working with until I saw my heroes showing up backstage, and paying tribute to these guys. And then that's when it started to really hit home that, oh, wow, these people were monumental in the careers of guys I looked up to, So yeah, it was an extreme blessing to be able to play with these people, and not only to become the musician I did, but also the vocalist, the lead singer that I would become, and the ability to learn how to sing, directly from iconic singers like Johnny Taylor and Bobby Blue Bland and guys like that, B.B. King. I was very, very fortunate to be able to play and sing, with those guys. So it was quite an honor.
And out of curiosity, when you were that age, you were obviously very young. What sort of gear were you using?
Well, I played Fender guitars all during that period of my life. As a sideman, I had a couple of different Stratocasters that I used. In particular, I had like a kind of a 50s reissue type of Strat that was a maple board with with the white strap, the maple board. And then I had, oddly enough, one of the guitars that was my complete workhorse guitar as a sideman was a Tokai Springy sound.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of the sleeper guitar, and Stratocaster aficionados will recognize that guitar. But the ST80 I had was a very rare guitar. Now it was a Japanese clone of a 50 Stratocaster, the Sunburst, and I love that guitar because I always loved Browning. I had some great pictures of Eric with Derek and the Dominoes, and some other great iconic pictures of Eric playing his Browning guitar.
Yeah.
So I was always on the quest to find one, and still to this day, it's my favorite Stratocaster tone that Clapton had.
Yeah.
With that guitar, aside from later on the Journeyman period, but so that was kind of the quest for it. And so that's what I could find was a Tokai. So that guitar became a workhorse guitar for me. It was Fender amps usually. As a sideman in those days, I used a twin reverb. I had a black face twin reverb, and then for smaller rooms, I had a black face super reverb.
Yeah.
So I kind of went between the super reverb or the Fender twin.
Yeah, and I'm sure, as I say, working with musicians and the quality of musicians that you're working with, that must have really pushed you as well to be as good as you could be.
Absolutely. I mean, it elevated me to a status of musicianship that I didn't realize that I was able to attain. I definitely wouldn't have done it on my own. Yeah. One of the things about it was that a lot of the musicians I played for in the in the R&B and soul and kind of chitlin circuit market, there were fines imposed. So if you made a mistake, or if you hit a wrong note, or if you hit a wrong chord, it was a $50 fine. It cost
Really?
you $50. So then,
Harsh
and
lesson.
all the band would do is just flash a 5 at you, and later on, I through, and we'll probably get to this later, but I met and befriended and became friends with Prince. And I know Prince used to do that when Prince would show you a 5, it meant $500.
All right. Okay.
So he would find his guys $500 if they hit a wrong note. So that's why Prince was always flawless. And so that's why a lot of those bands were flawless like that. There were monetary fines imposed. So
Gets real very quick.
It pushed me, but it also kind of created a level of perfectionism that sometimes I've had to let go of nowadays, because I can't tend to be too hard on myself or others at times. So I've had to learn to relax, and if you make a mistake, you make a mistake. Look, just play the mistake twice so it sounds like jazz.
Yeah, it's good attitude. Good attitude. And then
exactly.
At like 7-18, you were out working with some big players, with Johnny Taylor and then Lucky Patterson, like again touring the world, etc., doing those sort of things. Was that a big step up from the local scene, or did it just feel like a natural evolution?
Absolutely, it was a big step up. I had been touring the regional South and had been touring on what they call the Chitlin circuit, which was also a circuit that Jimi Hendrix played on in his early days. Which consisted of primarily African American clubs and festivals and venues with these R&B artists. And when I joined Lucky P, and I got to play with all the iconic greats. I mean, on that circuit, I played with many heroes. And joining Lucky's band, I began to tour internationally, and so that's what, starting at 18 years old, I started touring the world, and that it definitely changed. And it definitely was spearheaded my career into the direction that where it would go. Whereas, we tended to have a lot more success in Europe and in the UK and wherever else, because I toured with an artist that was more internationally known. And Lucky really pushed me. And by the time I was 19 years old, I was his band leader. I was his musical director at 19.
Yeah.
And so, that really, it definitely pushed me as far as a musician, and it also opened so many doors for my career, especially in Europe.
Yeah, for sure. And on the back of that, then, did you go straight into your solo career then when you came back off that?
Actually, I did. I think I recorded my first album when I was 20.
Yeah.
I was not yet 21, and I think the album was released when I was 21, about to turn 22. But I had befriended Buddy Miles while I was working with Lucky, and I started to play with Buddy, and what an honor that was to play with Jimi Hendrix's drummer and Carlos Santana's drummer, and all those other people that he had played with. And so Buddy and I began putting an album together, and and I still went back and did other Sideman tours. And oddly enough, it was, after my first album was released, I was on tour in Europe on my first, probably my second or third European tour. And James Brown offered me to come join his band.
Okay.
And because things had been happening so well with the first record, and we were touring a lot, I did four shows with James Brown, and then he wanted me to stay on long term, and I said I had to decline. I had to pass on playing with James Brown for any length of time, just because I had kind of been there.
Yeah, and, it's a bit like that Stevie Ray, David Bowie thing, isn't it? It's a bit like the Stevie Ray, David Bowie thing. Tying yourself into that sort of niche, and then not having the freedom to do your own thing.
Absolutely, because it was just starting, and it was starting well. So it was absolutely the same situation.
Yeah. And how did you find working as a solo artist after the years working with other people?
It was great. It definitely had its struggles, because I had been used to being a sideman.
Yeah.
I had been used to riding on tour buses and flying around on planes, and really just needed to show up and learn the songs and have my guitar. That was all I had to worry about. And when I began touring as a solo artist, I then all of a sudden went, wait a minute, where's the tour bus? Where's Oh, this is my responsibility. I have to do all this now, you know. It was kind of funny that, you know, in my early 20s, that's what I had to start figuring out really quick, is how to logistically put tours together, and not just around regionally, but, you know, I had to, you know, organize international travel. And, you know,
the business side of the business.
The business side of the business. So, you know, at a young age, it immediately thrust me into that, which again was a good lesson and a good, you know, good learning experience. So but I didn't take control. I was used to having everything done for me, and now I have to do it all myself.
Yeah. And do you think at any point does that impact on the creativity side of things?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it still does to this day. I think, you know, I think the more that, you know, the more that everything is DIY, and the more that they're independent and having to do everything themselves, from booking gigs to arranging travel to interviews like we're doing now and everything else, you know, it's easy to lose sight of the music. And the music must always, you know, come first. The creativity always must come first, I've learned. So I think that's the biggest lesson is just that. It's you know, making sure that the music and the creativity remain at the forefront.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you think were the highlights over those years? Anything particular really stand out for you over that sort of time period?
Oh, man, you know, there were so many moments. You know, during the Sideman era and through the early years of my career, you know, one of the key highlight moments is not only being able to meet all of the celebrities and the heroes that I had and meeting all those guys, but you know, one in particular was Buddy Miles introducing me to Prince. You know, and working with Buddy and introducing me to Prince, jamming with Prince, you know, and being able to really spend that time with those two guys in a jamming trip, and then to really and for Prince to really, you know, acknowledge my playing and really give me a lot of encouragement, as did a lot of other artists. But in the early days, that was big for me, and it really influenced music. That early music definitely had a lot more funk element to it, and it definitely had a lot more of that kind of sensibility to it, just because of where I was coming from. And then not only that, but, you know, on those meetings like that. So I was really able to be in direct contact with a lot of my heroes that were still living at that time, and you know, really, you know, getting a lot of accolades from them. So that was really, you know, a great gift and very rewarding. And then, you know, I just remember writing the riffs and writing the songs, and really, you know, really being very hungry in order to write and just produce. And, you know, even though a lot of that early material was just, they weren't as song oriented as much as it was just kind of jam oriented and songs written around the fact of the guitar solo. It was a lot of fun because I had been playing in big R&B groups as a backing musician for so long. I think that's why those early records had such an element of jam type of music associated with them. I had been kind of constrained into a sideman role for so long.
Yeah, for sure. And the likes of the Prince meeting, for example, spending time with him, what did you take away from Prince as an artist, or as a human being when you were with him? What sort of qualities did you instantly recognize that separated him from the chasing pack?
Well, I mean, for one, Prince was the greatest artist I ever saw perform and work. To this day, hands down, he was one of the all and all. And you know, upon meeting him, I didn't know what to expect. You know, we were kind of briefed by his tour manager, Billy Sparks. And Billy was great. Billy actually played the club owner in the movie Purple Rain. But Billy came in, you know, and we were these totally out of control kids. You know, we were smoking, drinking, and partying, and I mean, you know, we were in our 20s acting crazy. And Billy kind of told us, hey, you guys can't smoke cigarettes, you guys can't smell like smoke, you guys can't be partying, no curse words, no swearing. You guys have to, so it was almost like meeting a diplomat or the president or the queen or, a minute, somebody from the church, It really was. I mean,
consummate professional, really.
We went in on our best behavior, when I met Fred. And, so he was incredible. I mean, he was one of the few rare people that I ever met that had the entire Bible memorized.
Oh, really?
He really had the entire Bible memorized. It was crazy how he was rattled off. Really super good guy, man. He was super encouraging. Really, and he understood musically. Like when he heard me play, he could pinpoint every single instrument in the playing. And knew exactly what it's coming from and exactly what I've been listening to and exactly how it originated, which is amazing to hear me play for 3 minutes and go, that's this and this is that and this, And so, I mean, it was incredible to have an icon like that. He was totally encouraging, totally inspiring, and just treat me as an equal. There was really no, ignoring me or like, trying to be this big superstar. He legitimately saying, hey man, how you doing? Are you good? Anything, and then hey, let's go jam. And that's what I always will remember about Prince. And sadly enough, he came to the studio in Dallas and was working on some stuff and wanted me to come down and play, and nobody had my new phone number.
Oh.
So no, this was kind of pre-social media days, and nobody could find me. Nobody could track me down. And it's funny because me and the guys that work at the studios still talk about this to this day, is that Prince came looking for me and nobody could find me. So that was a drag, but it was great, man. It was great. It really was a real good testament of, I don't care how big of a superstar you are, treat people like you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, human element to it all at the end of the day. And so I think my first introduction to you, Lance, was via the Supersonic Blues Machine. That's quite a crazy project to be involved in as well.
It was. Yeah, it was a crazy, absolutely crazy project.
It's such a fluid sort of project, isn't it?
Yeah, it was I was really extremely honored to be a part of it. That was a great band that I was in, when I was a part of that band. Being able to play with Kenny Aronoff was phenomenal. And then also all the guitar players that were involved in the project were unbelievable. I mean, we had Billy Gibbons at the top, we had Robben Ford, we had all those amazing guitar players and musicians that showed up and that were really there to learn their performances and all their music to the band. So it was incredible, man, to be a part of something like that. So
yeah, and it's
glad for the introduction.
Yeah, it's real recognition as well of your own musicianship to be involved in a project like that as well. An acknowledgement really of your own musicianship.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. I worked really hard, and I was really I was grateful for the opportunity when it arose in my career that I was able to do those first two records with Supersonic Blues Machine and to be in that band with an extreme on it. To play with those musicians that were in that band, it was great. So I think that's just key. I think if you work hard enough at something, work long enough, I think that things like that tend to happen.
Yeah. And I suppose for people on the outside, they would think that, like where's Lance Lopez came from, etc. But you've really been grafting at this for decades, honing your craft.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it was. Yeah.
And just reward at the end of the day, really. So obviously talk about the last couple of years. We've had such a hard time with the pandemic and the impact on that on the likes of yourself as a musician. How did you deal with the last sort of 2 years, and how did it impact you directly?
Well, I had, pre that, man, I had to take the year before that even off to really refocus my own personal wellness, due to drugs and alcohol and sobriety. And I took the year before that off. And
that was that 2019?
2018.
Yeah.
And went and got myself together,
Yeah.
And just was like, man, it's time to truly get myself together and get my life in order. And kind of, the trials and tribulations of the road just kind of caught up to me. So at that point, it was like, man, I gotta get sober. I can't keep doing this. And it's kind of been touted for a little while that I had made an attempt, and then that miserably derailed. And so, I came to Nashville, Tennessee, just to completely restart my life, and just spent time, focusing on my wellness and focusing on others' wellness. I actually went to work the year before that in a drug rehab. It was actually helping people. Okay. And so that's what I was doing pre-pandemic. And then when I thought, okay, let's go back out and play again, pandemic.
Yeah.
So looking forward to an amazing year. We were looking forward to getting back out and a lot more. And, and then COVID happened. And I was kind of recharged and ready to go again. And so unfortunately, that happened. So I went into repairing guitar amplifiers here in Nashville. So,
okay.
And I began rebuilding and restoring guitar amps, and working with a lot of great guitar players, a lot of great artists here in town, and which became a blessing. I met a lot of guitar players and met a lot of great artists, and learned a lot of new things I'd known about it already, but then I kind of advanced my education in it and tried to be as productive as I could.
Yeah.
While maintaining, safety and all of the requirements that we need to maintain due to this pandemic. I needed to, while doing whatever I had to do legally or whatever.
Yeah.
But that was what was cool. I was able to get into repairing guitar amps and really focusing on gear and writing songs. And then in the midst of that, it was time to record a new record. And so, that's kind of where we wound up in the middle of this.
Yeah. So you're creative throughout. Then you were writing constantly, were you?
I was.
Yeah.
I was. Yeah.
And what sort of themes do you tackle on the album then?
Life. Real life, and I think that's where the blues really comes in. And even though the music may not always be, quote unquote traditional blues, the themes are definitely that. It's definitely real life music, and it involves, those kind of things that the blues talks about and sings about.
Yeah.
Those sort of subjects. So a lot of it is real life. I write about circumstances that are surrounding me, and I write with my partner, Joey Sykes, and he's been a songwriter, partner and producer of mine since the Supersonic Bluesman days, and he's now producing the next record. And so he'll either come to the table with a song. Here's a song I wrote about you, or a song I wrote about the situation you were dealing with. And so, and we write together. So I love having a co-writer, because that really helps. That really helps just it all being on me. I really enjoy having a co-writer and someone that I can write with, that I can bounce ideas off of, and have that kind of that sounding good. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. And talking about gear, out of curiosity then, so like what do you tend to use now? For example, if you were going out to play a gig live, what would you be using?
Oh, wow. Well, so I just started working with an amplifier builder in Texas that I've known for many years. We actually just started working together. I'm working with Category 5 amplifiers, and they're building some really cool amps. I'm using an amp right now called the PDR-50, which was a clone of one of Joe Bonamassa 59P Bassman.
Okay.
And it's a Bassman that has an actual reverb tank installed into the amp. So it's got a like the old Fender early 60s reverb tank in a Bassman. So it's really cool with an effects. So it's a highly modded Bassman that's really, really cool. I love the Fender Bassman. I'm going to go back to that for a long time. And so I am now. They're also building me an amp called the Beam, which is it's a Marshall style amp. But instead of the L34s, it's running on 5881 tube. It's a really cool amp. We tried a couple of different versions of it. Now we're doing a 212 version, which will also be a tube style combo, but with the tone circuits and kind of the Marshall amp style. Other than that, I've got an amp that I was on the ground floor with Reinhold Wagner with several years ago called the Helios 100. I helped Reinhold design that amp back several years ago, and definitely with the beginning of the 50 watt version, and it was incredible. It small box version of the Helios amp. So I worked with Reinhold Wagner for many years and helped design the Helios 100, and that was the mainstay for a long time. So those amplifiers are kind of the answer to a lot of the traditional and Fender amps that I've used all my life. And one of the key elements was how do we get an amp, traditional amp, and not have the volume to play smaller clubs or rooms?
Yeah.
It's
a nightmare.
Right. And the Wagner Helios was the answer to a giant Marshall sound, because that was always my, for my solo band, that was always with Marshall amps. But I was always so bloody loud. So how do we make those controllable in a small room? And so that's what these circuits help do.
Yeah. And are they are they clean platform amps with pedals on top, or are they overdriven? Or
well, they can be set either way. I think a lot of times I would use the Wagner as an overdrive sound because it's less Paul straight in. Yeah. I just use the volume knob. And if I needed to have something more, I had to do and definitely the Category 5, the TBR-50 is definitely a clean platform amp. It definitely has more the ability to take pedals of a wide array of pedals. But again, I'm about using the Les Paul and the amp turned up and use your volume knob.
Old school.
That's cool. It's tried and true. I think a lot of our all my favorite records were kind of done that way, and my favorite guitarists used them that way. And it was Billy Gibbons that really inspired me to go that direction again. Especially with the early CP pop material, he definitely he kind of pushed me back into that mode again, doing that. So a lot of these amps, that's kind of what you do. They just give you that overdrive sound in low volume. Yeah. And you sort of touched on it. It's interesting now with modern amps that the focus really is on smaller, lower wattage, lower output amps, because, as you say yourself, so many of the clubs you play in these days are demanding lower volume rather than the big stacks and the big 50 watt and 100 watt pushing out too much air, really, isn't it? Right. And even on the big stage, we the volume is not what it used to be because of the PA down for so even on the large stage now, we don't need as much volume. So, it also helps there as well. I mean, I was, plus, moving a 412 Marshall cab around at my age now.
It's not fun.
It's painful.
Yeah. And you haven't been tempted by the digital direction at all?
Yeah, I mean, you know, in the studio, I use Amplitude. I use all the Amplitude products from IK Multimedia, you know, when I'm tracking ideas. And some of that I'll use, but live, no. Live,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of guys are using Kemper and Actifex, and you know, and if I had to do an artist gig where I was backing another artist and that was the rules required to use, I would use it. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not totally into technology, but for my band and for us, we're very traditional, organic. You know, there needs to be some coding.
Yeah, yeah, very good, very good. And guitar-wise, and you're predominantly Gibson these days. You're playing Les Pauls and Firebirds and stuff like that. There.
I am a Gibson artist. Yeah, I've been working with Gibson for quite some time now, and as an endorsee. And so my main guitars are I have an R9 Les Paul that they built for me several years ago at the custom shop. It is an incredible guitar. It's from their Made to Measure series, and they built me a Les Paul with specs from Jimmy Page's number one,
Oh, yeah.
Billy Gibbons, Pearly Gates, and also I believe it was called the Hotel California Les Paul, which was I think either one of Don Felder or Joe Walsh's verse that they used in the Beatles. So it kind of got attributes of all three of those guitars in the one Les Paul.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty incredible R9 type guitar, and I love it. And then I've got the other main guitar I've been playing is, you know, if I want to go back and get a bit more of a thinner kind of single coil type tone, I go to the Firebird mini humbuckers. I've got a great 65 reissue tone blue guitar that they use. It's incredible. They built it. I use them. And then a Flying V that's modded with Pearly Gate humbuckers. Gibbons really loved that guitar. We call it Sugar, and we put a set of his pickups in it. It's just a killing guitar. So.
Yeah. More. A couple of quality guitars is all you need. You don't need 15 or 20 in a rack, do you? Just two or three really good guitars in your set.
That's it. I mean, it's fun to, I've never been one to, let me show off all my guitars. I'm like, I need a guitar that works that's going to help me get stuff.
Absolutely. And you mentioned it earlier on, obviously, the new album. You're doing a crowdfunding for the new album?
We are doing a crowdfunder for the record right now. Currently, it's on Indiegogo, and and I think you can find it under LL New Album Project. And yeah, we're after, from coming out of COVID, and then the last couple of years, we would like to get our fans get involved with us in making the album a reality, and it also gives whoever contributes to the project ownership in the album, which I think is really cool. I wish had I been able to be on the ground floor of, some of my favorite records and have ownership in it, I would definitely have gone and done that. And so we definitely got a crowdfunder going for it. We're down to the next, couple of weeks on it. So, we're offering some cool things like house concerts. And also we're offering custom songs, if they're cool, which is a song that we'll write. Joey and I will write a song, and then whoever participates in that part, they'll own the song. So they'll not only will we write a song about whatever subject they want, or if they have a song they're working on, they'll finish it or work on it for them, but they also retain ownership of it. Complete publishing on the song. Yeah,
it's a great idea, because obviously, as you say yourself, as when a fan is invested in a musician, there's nothing better to get involved, as you say, and feel like you've part ownership of that album. Feel like you're part of the team.
Exactly.
Yeah, cool. And when are you hoping to have the album completed and ready?
Well, we're hoping by this spring. We would like to see the album out, definitely by the springtime, early summer. And we're looking at trying to have a single out here within, the next couple of months.
Yeah, yeah, very good. And you said you're gigging at the moment. Where are you sort of playing at the moment?
I've been back playing recently around, back in my region here in the South, and around Texas and Louisiana and Arkansas and Alabama. We've been, back in our region, doing regional touring and local touring, in the region until things get a bit safer.
Yeah.
They are, just as far as, as whatever kind of mandates, whatever certain areas. We're ready to get back out international again. So we are hopefully going to be back out abroad in, the summer next year.
Yeah. And out of curiosity, for me, it's a bit surreal trying to comprehend the scale of where you are, the size of the states, trying to get around America. Even like, how do you do that logistically? How do you tackle that?
Well, there's a lot of bus rides, a lot of flights, a lot of there's a lot of hours on the road touring North America. So it's a big place. There's a lot of riding. So, I've been doing it my whole life. So you get used to it after a long time.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, look, Lance, I'll just say thank you very much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Best of luck, obviously, with the album and the crowdfunding. Hopefully it all goes well for you.
Thank you so much, man. I look forward to it. And thank you so much for having me on the show.
No problem.
See all you guys soon. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you very much. Yeah, hopefully get you back in Europe soon. Take care.
Cheers.
Thank you, man. Cheers.